Okay, guys, so this is our Coil project number 1. I am Jessica,
I'm Nicole.
I am Anna.
and our partners in Amsterdam are Kelly and Tom.
What we think we know about our Amsterdam partners. We have the perception that people from Amsterdam are diverse and speak multiple languages. Although we believe that people from Amsterdam do not generally like to participate in small talk, they are friendly and welcoming to newcomers. We know that Amsterdam is a small city, which leads us to believe that many people use bikes for transportation. We believe the majority of the population belong to the Dutch ethnicity and white race. We envision Amsterdam to be a charming and older-looking city with little traffic. The small villages in the Netherlands are populated by small communities who speak Dutch. Important places in the Netherlands are the Anne Frank House and the Tulip Museum, because the tulip is the national flower of the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, the lifestyle is laid back and more go with the flow, which differs greatly from the lives we live here in New York City and the United States. In the Netherlands, education and work come as second priorities after life and happiness. The thought process of people in the Netherlands differ from those living in the United States because the American society greatly focuses on one's education, occupation, and one's success in those fields.
Amsterdam might be the most photogenic city in the world due to its charming pictures and peaceful small villages with countless windmills. This is some of the pictures of Amsterdam's scenery. Amsterdam is a city which bicycles are one of the most favorable forms of transportation. In fact, that the country boasts more than 18,000 miles of dedicated bike paths. Museum is also a popular tourist attraction in Amsterdam. The Van Gogh Museum is a must-visit for art fans and historians. The museum has been one of Amsterdam's top attractions since it opened in 1972.
So after we interviewed our Amsterdam partners, we actually learned a lot about the culture and maybe things that we thought and ended up being a little bit different. So, for example, Amsterdam is not the ideal place to live. They told us that it's hard to find living, kind of like New York in a sense, where housing is very expensive, and they said that there was a housing crisis, which there wasn't enough housing for the people that are living in the small city of Amsterdam. They also mentioned about sororities and frat houses, kind of similar to the United States, how many colleges have sororities and frats, but I think it was a little different for them because they had it at nearly most of their universities when, for example, FIT doesn't have that, so there's a little bit of a difference there. The city is very old, so it has a lot of older looking buildings, not necessarily many skyscrapers or more modern looking architecture. The city of Amsterdam also has many canals in which you can ride little boats on and stuff like that, and there are little bridges that you can walk over throughout the city, in which are a fun tourist attraction. There are in Amsterdam, there are upcoming skyscrapers that they are building, and more modern buildings seem to be being built, but most of the city is old, as we said. A lot of the hobbies that people can do in the city are visiting small bars and going to small little concerts, and swimming is very popular in the summer. Summers in Amsterdam tend to be very hot for around 3 weeks. Summers also aren't extremely long. People also in Amsterdam have multiple bikes. It's not just one bike. They usually own multiples, and it's also extremely common. As it is a small city, it's easy to get around via bike, but they also do use the train and the subway, but biking is the number one form of transportation for them. People in Amsterdam tend to be a little bit more reserved. Some might say that they aren't necessarily the most polite, which I think when we were doing our perception of things, of people in Amsterdam, we thought they would definitely be more friendly. But our partners in Amsterdam made it aware to us that they might be not so as polite and maybe more reserved and don't want to speak to other people that openly. So there is that factor there. Most people in Amsterdam and the Netherlands tend to be Dutch and white, especially in the small villages. The common ethnicity will definitely be Dutch, and they mostly speak Dutch in the small villages. When in the city, there are people who speak English, but it is mostly Dutch as well. People work part-time, 3 to 4 days a week in the small villages, so it makes more of a priority for everyday life, but also a priority to see your family and your friends and obtain overall happiness rather than just like a fast-paced environment where it's work, work, work all the time. Cities most generally speak English, while the villages are more Dutch, like I said, so the common languages differ between the cities, but people that live in the villages don't tend to really go to the cities like Amsterdam all that much. There are around 20 political parties in the Netherlands, so they talk about politics pretty openly, as that may differ from what you might see in the United States. What surprised us was actually that people aren't as friendly as we might have perceived them to be in the beginning. That they might be a little bit more shy, a little bit more reserved, and not open to small talk. Um, and then we learned that the city, while it is old, it still has a lot of diversity. So it's not just Dutch, but there is a lot of diversity within other cultural groups. But in the villages, it's definitely just predominantly Dutch. And their work days are obviously very different from what we can see here in the United States as well.
We got some thoughts about our partners in the United States before we interviewed them. We thought New York City is a one of a kind city. It's like you already know it because of all the movies and the video games, even if you've never been there. In New York City, you have almost every kind of people that almost all travel by subway. We see the people of New York City as very ambitious but very busy. Service is very important to them. Tom feels like the New Yorkers feel more like New Yorkers than Americans. It's a city of extreme lifestyles and a massive gap between the rich and the poor. New York City lets you believe that you can do everything you want unless you work very hard for it. Kelly feels like the New Yorkers are always in a rush in the morning to catch the subway or to go to the office. Besides that, the impression we get from the New Yorkers is that they are a little bit over enthusiastic when you first meet them. We also described New York in a few photos. New York City is a city that never sleeps with a lot of lights. You can see that in all the skyscrapers. Besides that, they have an economic center called Wall Street. Most of the New Yorkers do not own a car, so they mostly travel with the famous yellow cabs, as you can see in the picture. One of the most popular states of the world is the state of Liberty in Liberty Island. Another famous hotspot is Central Park and often appears in movies and series. The Metropolitan Museum of Art is a famous museum and is one of the biggest art museums of the world. Another name is the Met. We also know it from the fundraising gala, the Met Gala. After that, we interviewed our United States partners and we got some different views on them and the city. Most people in New York City walk or take a subway or an Uber. They spend a lot of money on an Uber every month. This is in comparison with the free transport for the students in the Netherlands. It can be confirmed that the New Yorkers think there is nothing like New York City. The people in New York are very friendly, especially in the shops, but not so much on the street. This is because the people in the stores want to sell their products. Another thing there are the food stamps. If you have a low income, you can use food stamps and you can stretch your food budget. Another thing is the healthcare. In the Netherlands, we get the idea of the state that when you are poor, you're actually pretty hopeless when it comes to healthcare. The richer you are, the better protected you are. That's the idea we got. The college students indicated that it was not that bad and it's slightly more nuanced than that. Besides that, there are also the politics. They told us that you not openly talk about the politics, for example, when you're in class. You do not discuss it with other students or your teacher.